Welcome to Investment Trends, brought to you courtesy of ZDA and ZNBC. So this week on the program, we look at the role information, communication and technology plays in promoting investments and economic transformation. I'm Paxina Hankanga, your host for today. So my guest on the program today is Mr. Patrick Mutimushi, who is the Director General of Zambia Information, Communication and Technology Authority, Zicta. Hello and welcome to the program.
Hello.
It's nice to have you today.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so maybe just to, warm up the show,
Yes,
just tell us how is Zicta this year?
Oh, no, Zicta is fantastic. I think we're doing great stuff. We're able to see more stuff within the year, but yeah, we're fine.
Great expectations?
Absolutely.
Okay. I hope that everybody's actually having great expectations for this year.
Yeah.
Now, are you able to tell us how actually Zicta and ZDA, the agency that has the mandate to promote and facilitate investment in Zambia, work together to promote investment?
Great. Maybe to begin with, we have signed a memorandum of understanding with ZDA. And within that, that's how we interact with each other, to be able to ensure that we promote. We're coming from the ICT sector, so definitely our focus is mainly on the ICT sector itself. There are a number of activities which we do with ZDA. Some of them include, and obviously not limited, to ensure that we take part in investment promotions. And this happens at local and international. For where we have gone with ZDA when they're holding their investment forums, and would present and give, put input to the investment climate and procedures in the ICT sector. Yeah. We have worked with ZDA quite a lot. Some of the works include them providing a business support to PPP arrangements, because a typical one is the computer assembly plant, which we are running at Zicta. We worked very closely with ZDA. And ZDA has always been on our side when we do those investor perception surveys in the sector, and we give input to the investment climate or profile for Zambia, particularly for the ICT sector.
Yeah, so but there's one key aspect in Zambia, which is the cost of doing business, which has actually been quite an issue among many business men and women. So, how is Zicta actually contributing to government efforts in reducing the cost of doing business in Zambia, just to, attract more FDI, as well as encouraging, reinvestment for local and domestic entrepreneurs?
Great. Being a regulator of the ICT sector, obviously one of our mandates is to ensure that we create a level playing field in terms of competition. In doing so, what we've done and what we are doing is that we allow for a lot of competition coming to the market. Recently, I think just towards the end of last year, we had our minister sign regulations for our new licensing regime. The licensing regime opens up the market, meaning that within the whole entire value chain, you'll be able to see that anybody can come in the sector and start providing services. For an investor, one of the critical issues that they look at is the predictability of any laws, regulations surrounding that. And what we've done as Zicta is to ensure that we are predictable in the regulations that we put, so that when people come into the market, they have got short, medium, and long-term investment plans. Nothing will change in terms of regulations. Clearly, you have seen that this new licensing regime, which I've talked about, brings the consolidation of licenses. Before, one would come into the sector and would get up to 5 or 6 licenses just to provide a service in the sector. Today, orders have been reduced into 2 only. Which is the network service license and the service license. Again, we are taking the norms of technological neutrality, meaning that when you get this service, you're able to provide a range of ICT services. Today, you know that there's a phenomenon of convergence. One platform would be able to provide you, or you'd be able to provide a number of services in the ICT sector. So those are some of the activities or initiatives that we have done as a regulator. And in reducing the cost of business, there are other regulations such as access regulations. What that means is that if I'm coming into Zambia, Initially, it was a place or environment where when I come, for example, as a mobile provider,
Yeah.
I would start with providing a service. I would start creating and laying infrastructure for me to be able to start provisioning of any service. But today, you can come into the sector. You start only providing a service because there are other players in the market who has got infrastructure. Therefore, you'd be able to ride on already laid infrastructure, meaning your initial startup obviously reduces, so long as obviously you are going to have the your negotiation, the business arrangements between the provider of that infrastructure and yourself. So looking at those, you'd be able to tell that even the cost, your capital, initial capital investment into the sector will be low, because you won't be looking at issues of infrastructure, where you're going to put up your tower, where you're going to put up your antennas if you're in mobile communication or any of those. They are already there. So meaning that we've actually substantially reduced quite a number of costings that will allow you to start up your business.
Yeah, because you do realize that, the cost of doing business has a direct, it actually does affect the customer at the end of the day. So are these new initiatives that you're putting up?
Yeah, they're actually in place. It's not saying we are putting up, they're actually in place. These are, when I talked about the new licensing regime, it's actually in place, and that's what we are using. We've already phased out the old licensing regime. We've got this new licensing regime that just promotes anybody to go at a different particular value chain, within the value chain, where you can enter and start providing any service. So this is happening as we speak. I'm sure we are all users of internet and the social media and everybody, but you'll be able to tell that recently there was actually actual reduction in the cost of your the tariffs which are charged for bundles. This is a direct result of competition in the market, and we expect that we'll have such reductions more and more as we open up the market.
Okay. Yeah, because the customer must definitely, at the end of the whole chain, feel the impact of the initiatives that you're doing. Now, tell us a bit about this, is it incubation program that you're actually doing?
We call it the ICT incubation program. It is a program that is designed for ICT young innovators. Believe me, we've got so many intelligent people in Zambia.
Yes, that is
and with the internet availability and all sorts of things, you'll be able to see that a number of young youths go into software development, making up applications which ride on these ICT platforms. Now, the essence and the whole core objective of this ICT Innovators program is to actually get those youngsters, teach them the business acumen so that they can become entrepreneurs in ICTs. What that does is that you are giving them a job to start with, and you are giving them knowledge to create wealth. Because we are saying you can be an innovator, but at the same time, if you don't have the business skills behind that, you end up just creating an ends there. But we want to translate what you invent in terms of your innovation, your thinking in ICTs, put it into a business that will run your life. At the end of the day, this business can grow in such that you actually start creating jobs for the youth. At the same time, this is a program that looks at what we call early stage startup entrepreneurship in ICTs. So we create that environment for them to learn how to run a business. At the end of the day, the ultimate, again, is not just about business and wealth creation. You are actually creating an ICT base, knowledge base in this country. And if you look into your 2030, 2064 visions, it talks about being a country that is based on information age. So how are you going to have an information age if you don't have ICT skills? And this is what we are trying to do. And I might say that this program is very well taken by our partners. We've had to talk to a number of partners, banks and so on. So it seems like it's moving on well. That's the way we think we can contribute and give back.
So how are you identifying these young people? What is your target?
Correct. The criteria is there where we say it's like you put up a project document, or you put up what you're trying to create, and we look at, there's a criteria that we use to be able to assess and say this we can sponsor and and make them go through the whole training.
Okay.
For example, last year we had 500 applications. There's nothing that comes for free. It costs a bit of money. So we try as much as possible. We would have loved to pick up all the 500 applications, but in that we ended up, normally it's at 20. So only pick up the top 20 and be able to go through the same process.
Okay, that sounds interesting. So any young person who actually feels they've got some viable ITC project can actually participate. They don't need to have a very strong educational background, because we have young people who are brilliant with
absolutely.
computers.
And that's obviously, for one to have some basics and to be able to have an innovation on ICT, they have some basics in terms of learning.
Yes, yes.
So yes, we don't have to be a master's degree thing, but it's a youth looking at a certain age and making sure that these we help in a way that we can.
Now, are you able to give us some highlights of Zicta's new 2017-2021 strategic focus?
Great. The board approved the 2017-2021 strategic plan for Zicta. And our strategic plan is mainly based on the theme of bridging the digital divide and increasing access to all. Because we strongly believe that with ICTs, you bring social and economic benefits to everybody. So it is based on 4 pillars, main pillars, which is growth and innovation, sustainability, innovation, and partnership, and lastly, capacity building. With those main 4 pillars, we have put our mandate to fit within, so that we're able, number 1, to promote access to broadband, number 2, increase skills, 3, we're talking about making sure that we have got enough regulations that we are able to regulate this sector and create a competitive level playing field in terms of opening up the market, which we've done through the licensing of the new licensing regime. Okay. And obviously, we cannot be a cost-effective manager in terms of personnel to run the institution itself. So we try to make sure that the institution has the necessary resources in terms of human beings and, of course, the funding.
But, how is your new licensing framework actually working out?
With a new licensing framework, it has opened up the market in that one would be able to go at different segments. Before the old new licensing framework, what it had was that, for example, if you are going to provide mobile services in this country, you mainly have a national license or international license, so forth. But what we've done is that we have broken it down, that you can come at international level, national level, district level, provincial, then district level. What that means is that it also allows, because ICTs is really capital intensive if you're going to go full blast. So if you are able to I want to provide a service in Lusaka only, we can give you a license for that. What that tells is that even common Zambians can actually go into the market. So the new licensing framework opens up entirely, the whole entire market, not to only allow for those giants with financial capital, but even those one who has got little capital to be able to enter and start dealing in ICTs at provincial, at district level. So that's the core behind this new licensing. And the most important thing is that we are in a fast-paced technological sector, ICTs.
Yes.
Every 2 years, 10 years, everything changes. So if the old new licensing regime was that it really focused on the aspect of the service that you're providing. But with this new one, we run away from that and make sure that whatever license we give, it's open enough for you to provide anything that you want, because the technology changes on very fast. So you can't afford every time technology change, you also change regulation. Then you remove that aspect of predictability. So if I've got the licensing regime which encompasses whatever developmental changes happens in terms of technology, then I'll be predictable. And one can come in and say, look, you know what, I'm going to invest for 10 years. They know that in the next 5, 10 years, it's most likely that you're going to have the same kind of regulation, and that just gives you a guarantee on your return of investment.
So you would definitely say that it's an improvement of the old licensing?
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, we're hoping to actually see, you know, a lot of these things just, you know, making a big impact with regards to business right here in Zambia. But, you know, what key projects right now is Zicta undertaking in its quest to promoting access to ICTs, you know, for all? Because we know that this is something we're actually grappling with right now in our country, especially in the rural areas.
Great. On one hand, I think we had the initial, what we call phase 1 project installations in chiefdoms. That really opened up the chiefdom to access to mobile services.
That's interesting.
In the second phase, that project now will be run by Zamtel, and they'll be installing something like 1,009 towers around the whole country. What that means is that it's nearly about 94% coverage of where people stay, which is very good, meaning you can go to your village and be able to be on the net. And that project has already started with Zamtel. Now, for Zicta, the other project I think which we are very proud of for working with our ministry was to set up a national data center. This data center just talks and falls in line with the vision of the 2030 to make sure that this country comes into an information age society. We have continuously, we are running what we call connecting institutions. That is making sure that rural area schools are connected to the internet.
Yes.
So what we do is that we get to these institutions or primary schools, we lay the last mile connectivity. Normally we use optic fiber, and then we put up a lab, computer lab, put up computers in there, and then teach teachers, they go through a trainer program, and then they continue with operation of these labs. You are aware that the Ministry of Information, Ministry of Education actually introduced a curriculum on on ICT.
Yes.
So we are just trying to complement, and we'll continue, and we keep on continuing, opening up, you know, connecting more and more schools. We started with tertiary education. We connected University of Zambia, Mulungushi University, Copperbelt University. We went into nursing schools, Dollar School of Nurses, so many primary schools. We are continuing connecting all the provinces without fail.
Okay.
So in terms of access, that's one way to help with creating a generation that is IT or ICT server, which is we think will be very good to achieve that bridging the digital divide, which I talked about earlier. And obviously other projects which go along with that is, as I mentioned, you know, the government through Zamtel are trying to connect everybody around by putting up all base stations around this country.
Any other success stories you can tell us about, especially in the rural areas? I think that's where my interest really is, because we have a lot of schools in the rural areas, and of course access there was a bit, you know, pretty tricky. Are there any specific success stories that you can tell us about?
Oh yes, I mean, the Connecting Learning Institution has just been a fantastic project, which I think we're proud of. Because you see the joy when you connect a school, or when you donate computers and they're actually working, and there is internet, not just a matter of bringing in computers there. You see that you're opening up these brains connected to the global society. And I think it has been one area where I think we have scored quite a bit. We not only end up in schools, what we also look at, we have gone as far as looking at people with disabilities. And what we've done is that over the past 2 or 3 years, we have managed to get and donate some equipment for the blind. Even here in Lusaka, we've done that in Chilenge, a school, Chilenge Center for the Blind, I think it's called. We also take cognizance of the fact that no one must be left behind. And for us, it's not just about the able people. We look at even those with special needs.
Have to be inclusive.
Absolutely, and so we try to include everybody in there. So those are some of the success stories I would talk about that Zicta has done. And yeah, there are quite a bit more. It's a list that I can go on and on, but I take cognizance of those facts because really it does give a change in the minds for those when you do at primary level.
Yeah, I know it's one thing to actually, set up all these labs, set up all the necessary equipment that actually goes with these labs, but any plans for maintenance?
Yeah, what we do is that once we go set up the lab, for example, we connect them to the internet and would pay for 1 year continuously in a year. Within that, we are in liaison with them to see how they would be able to maintain this.
Okay.
Number one, a criteria for us to get there, we must make sure that the school is able to continue or sustain once we leave. So we look at how the funding is and all sorts of things to make sure that we don't just go dump there. Once we withdraw our funding, then the whole project dies. No, that's we want this to continue and continue. And obviously, it is expected that we would expect now the schools will also have ways of maintaining such equipment with time.
Okay, that sounds interesting. Now, are you able to give us, an overview, just a general overview of on the quality actually of service in the ITC sector right now?
Yeah, recently I think there were some headlines that Zicta has charged operators on the quality of service that is being provided. I must say that we are very, very concerned, and that's why we took that route. We expect that when a customer pays, it's supposed to be value for money. You don't expect, for example, on a mobile platform, you pay your, you have your tariff, you buy your talk time, and then you're trying to make calls, the calls are not going through, and yet you're being charged and everything. So we are very serious about quality of service. We've had word with other operators, and of course the penalties were charged, and they have been paying.
I can actually give a testimony to that. Yeah,
excellent.
There are some networks that have been pretty hard to get through.
Absolutely, and we are aware of that. We are not just ending up on penalties and penalties. Look, we can continue penalizing and you keep on paying to us, but that's not a solution. We want them to change completely. And if they don't, that's why the provisions are there in the law that we can do another step. Our aim is to ensure that the ICT services that are being provided is value for money, and they are of quality, not just hashi kind of service, quality of service that's been provided, and that I've made it very clear, and I'll make it very clear again. We shall not tolerate anybody providing a bad quality of service. We are going to do what is necessary to ensure that people get the value for money.
I'm sure a lot of our viewers are actually happy to hear that, because there must have been a lot who have been struggling with certain networks. Could it be that, is it the equipment they're using, or that's getting a bit obsolete? Or
you see, for everything that we have, when it comes to equipment, you need to maintain.
Yes.
A simple example is your car. Your car needs to go for service. After a long period of time, 10, 20 years, sell the car and buy a brand new car, or something like that. So obviously, with the growing number of base, in terms of customer base with operators, definitely the network they had from when they started needs to be relooked at, and a whole lot of them are doing a lot of investment. Zamtel is happening right now. Airtel did, you heard about the 4G and everything. So everybody seems to be putting into the net. MTN is the same thing. So it goes with the investment as well, and obviously making sure that you are moving along with the trend of the technology change. And I believe that our operators are doing just that, but they must just make sure that in as much as they are doing all these things, the quality is not compromised in any way.
Mr. Mutimushi, I've actually had interesting revelations coming through from you, and I hope that our viewers have actually, benefited and understood what is actually going on the ground with regards information technology. Thank you so much for coming through to the program and enlightening us on that which you're doing.
Thank you very much.
And we wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Well, viewers, you have been watching Investment Trends, and I have been chatting with Mr. Patrick Mutimushi, who is the Director General of the Zambia Information, Communication and Technology Authority, which is Zicta. Till next time on the show, have a good day.